Welcome to SJS Arts. So today I'm gonna do this list video where I will talk about underrated and unknown films of the 1970s. So in the FilmTube community, there have been many top lists of 1970s films lately. I've watched some of those videos and I really haven't liked what I've seen, as all of those films are just full of mainstream American films. Again, as we know, the motto of most FilmTubers is that you cannot read and watch at the same time. Anglosphere is all that you need, which is completely opposite of my approach to art and film. As I like to have an open mind, I like to explore films from different countries. I think it's very important to learn more about other cultures, and watching films is a good way to do that. And if you can read, you can also watch films with subtitles. It's not that hard. And don't be a xenophobic film watcher. Explore other cultures, open your mind, and grow as a person. Yeah. But anyway, in this video, I will highlight many kind of underrated and unknown films from all over the world. So we have South Korean films, Indian films, a Swedish film, a Czech New Wave film, Japanese films. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff. And I would take any of these films over like mediocre shark films like Jaws that was made by the world's most famous man-child. But anyway, let's go through these films now. So we're gonna start with a Mike Leigh film, Abigail's Party. Obviously, Mike Leigh is a fairly famous filmmaker, but this isn't one of his most famous films. You can watch this on Criterion Channel. But this whole film is actually situated in this one house, and we have this get together. And it's a very amazing film with great performances, great dialogue. And this is one film that really makes you think of those kind of small moments in your own life and many like people that you have met in your own life. At least that it did that to me. So it was like a very nostalgic watch in that way and very interesting. But a great movie. I need to rewatch this myself. Then we have this Masahiro Shinoda film that you can also watch on Criterion Channel called Ballad of Orin. And this is a very Misoguchi like film. It's about this blind woman who goes through all these trials and tribulations in her life. Okay, there's lots of oppression and abuse in this film, and she tries to find human connection, but she fails. But it's a very bleak and dark movie, but also beautiful in its own weird way. Yeah, not an easy film, but a great film. Yeah, probably my favorite Shinoda film so far. Then we have Baxter Vera Baxter by Marguerite Duras. This was released by Criterion fairly recently. It's the two films by Marguerite Duras release. And this is the lesser known film from that set. India Song is the more famous one, and also I think better film, but I decided to have this here as it is lesser known. But Marguerite Duras films are very difficult. They're kind of non-narrative films that are all about the kind of narration and the mood and the cinematography. And they are like very thematic films, but not very plot-driven films. So yeah, but really beautiful film in my opinion. Not an easy film, and you need to have an open mind to watch films like that. But yeah, they are very rewarding films if you can get yourself to get used to that type of filmmaking. Then we have one of my favorite filmmakers, Kichu Yoshida or Yoshishige Yoshida. And this is one of his best films in my opinion, Confessions Among Actresses. This is available in the Rare Film website that I sometimes mention, I think. Yeah, this is a weird mix of kind of fiction and documentary. Um, it has kind of some like Lynchian vibes, some Charlo vibes, some kind of very difficult new wave art house vibes. Yeah, and it says here drama, but it has that kind of again, like fake documentary thing and like fiction thing there. I mean, I guess it's all fiction, but it kind of feels like it's like a mixture of documentary and drama, how it's made. Yeah. Then another Japanese film by Toshio Matsumoto, it's Demons. And again, Matsumoto's most famous film is The Great Funeral Parade of Roses, but this is almost as good. And it's very, again, interesting, weird, new wave stuff, although it's very different to Funeral Parade of Roses. I think this is maybe less experimental than Funeral Parade of Roses. This is a bit more linear, if I remember correctly, and very bleak film, but good stuff. Very good, beautiful cinematography as well. Then we have this Indian film by Mani Kaul called Duvidha. Mani Kaul is known as kind of the Indian Robert Bresson, as he had like a very similar kind of minimalist style. But yeah, this film has a very simple plot. I really watched this film more as kind of a visual piece. I think it was just beautiful, minimal cinematography. Yeah, and there's also another Mani Kaul film that I liked more on this list. But yeah, simple film, but a beautiful film. Yeah, also a very poetic film, I would say. And Mani Kaul, I've seen a couple of his films and they've been really good. So then another underrated Ingmar Bergman film, Ansikte or Face to Face. This has one of Liv Ullmann's best performances, if not her best performance. There are a couple of different cuts of this film. I've only seen the shorter cut, as the longer one is really hard to track down. Well, I think this was released on Blu-ray, was it by Umbrella or someone? I'm not sure whether it has the longer cut. Hopefully it has, but yeah, very interesting film all about the female psyche. Yeah. Then we have a Czech new wave film by Vera Hytilova, Fruit of Paradise. Of course, her most famous film is Daisies, which is one of the most, if not the most famous not French, but Czech new wave film. But I think this is as good as Daisies, and it's again a retelling of the Adam and Eve story. But as you can imagine, as it is Czech new wave, it's a pretty crazy type of retelling, not a very easy watch in any way. And this can also be watched on Criterion Channel. But a beautiful and weird film. Very interesting film. Then we have a film, Goya or The Hard Way to Enlightenment. So this is about the famous painter Goya, who you probably have heard of. This is probably one of the more unknown films on the list, as it only has like 304 people who have watched it on Letterboxd, so that's a very small amount of people. And this is also very hard to track down. But it's probably worth it to check maybe YouTube or the Rare Film website, maybe it's there. I don't remember that much about this film, but it's very good. Then we have another Japanese new wave film, Grass Labyrinth by Shuji Terayama. This is a short film, it's like 30 or 40 minutes long. It has like very crazy visual style. It doesn't have like a very big plot or anything, it's more about the vibe, the atmosphere, the visuals. But it's very beautiful. And I think this is often on YouTube, but not in the best quality. Yeah. Then this one I watched very recently, so it's the High Solitudes by Philippe Garrel, a great French director that not that many people talk about. But this is actually an 80-minute long silent film, not even music, and it's just kind of collection of close-ups. So he filmed Gene Seberg and also the artist Nico, and this is kind of like like a collection of again close-ups of those two women, like you can see like when they struggle with like mental illness, alcohol and drugs. So it's the many of the close-ups are fairly like dark looking. But it's a very beautiful film, and I love good close-up, so I really love this film. But again, not for everybody. Yeah. Then another kind of non-narrative film, it's Raul Ruiz film, The Hypothesis of the Stolen Painting. This would be a good double bill of Last Year at Marienbad. It's a very similar type of film to that. So it's again narration and beautiful cinematography. So yeah, not for everybody, but if you like more experimental filmmaking, I would recommend this film and other films by Raul Ruiz. And I think this is usually also on YouTube. Then we have Kim Ki-young film, Yeo Island. And Kim Ki-young is one of the best South Korean filmmakers, but he is often kind of overshadowed by the more contemporary directors like Bong Joon-ho, Kim Ji-woon, Lee Chang-dong, Park Chan-wook, and people like that. But Kim Ki-young is the director who kind of came before them and actually influenced them a lot. Of course, like the one of the main influences for Bong Joon-ho's famous film Parasite was one of Kim Ki-young's films, The Housemaid, the most famous Kim Ki-young film. But this is also very beautiful. It has a like a weird plot. It's a really weird film, but also beautifully shot, really vibey, quite colorful as well. Really enjoyed this one. Again, hard to track down. Then an Indian film by Govindan Aravindan, it's Kummati. And this is also one of those kind of visually driven films. There's not much plot here, but it's kind of a beautiful shot after beautiful shot after beautiful shot. Very colorful, beautiful, again, cinematography of Indian nature. It's really beautiful to look at. Very interesting filmmaking. Lots of great shots. Then we have Little Malcolm and his struggle against the eunuchs by Stuart Cooper. So this is very kind of Mike Lee-esque film. And I think Mike Lee even had some um, involvement in this film. I don't remember in what way, but even if he didn't, it's still like a very again Mike Lee type of film. Would be a great double bill with Naked. Yeah, it's kind of like a film about incels before that term was uh, invented. Yeah, fun and dark at the same time. Then we have this great, very simple Japanese film by Kei Kumai. It's The Long Darkness. Yeah, this is like a simple story of a love, again, this simple love story. But it's very beautiful. It's all about life and how again, life develops. It's about time. Yeah, really beautiful stuff. Amazing cinematography. It's just a very humanistic film, which I love. I'd highly recommend this to my viewer Tony, my friend Tony. I mean, I've recommended it to him before as I talked about this on my channel last year, but I really think that this would actually fit lots of Tony's kind of recent film watching habits. Yeah. And this is in the rare film website in like 720p quality, so it's a like a good looking copy. Yeah. Then we have this weird film from San Francisco, Luminous Procures. This has sometimes been called to be like the American Saturicon. So Saturicon is the great Fellini film. Yeah, so it's again Weaknets, and it's all about the vibe and the imagery, not much about the plot, but really great queer stuff by Stephen Arnold that has been released by Second Run on Blu-ray. Then we have this Fassbinder film, Mother Küsters Goes to Heaven, which I think is a really great film, but it's not often talked about, as Fassbinder made many other great films. So this is often overshadowed by some of the more famous ones, I would say. But this has lots of the Fassbinder regulars. It is a very political film. Like there are like anarchist characters, communist characters, and they talk about their political philosophies. And we really get kind of a deep look at those political communities and their ways of thinking. Yeah, so very interesting. And I feel like this is a film that's kind of critical of many different types of political groups, which makes it very interesting. Yeah. Then you have the other side of the underneath that's all about mental illness, a very difficult movie, very weird film, very interesting film by Jane Arden. Yeah. This I think is such a great film, but it's not often talked about. Yeah. I think many people would pick this if they watched it. Yeah. Need to rewatch it myself as I have forgotten much about it. Then we have this Eric Romer film, Percival. And Percival is obviously one of the famous knights from the Arthurian myths. So this is a very different type of film for Eric Romer as it is this kind of period piece, this costume thing about like a famous myths and stuff. So it's very different from like Bowling at the Beach or My Night at Moths or things like that. But that's what makes it very interesting that it's very different from his usual style. But I do myself like his usual stuff more. But yeah, interesting filmmaking. It has that kind of very theatrical vibe to it. Yeah, I don't have that much to say about it. Yeah, more for the Eric Romer kind of regular style, but it's interesting to see what he did with the kind of other type of story. Then we have another Philip Garrel film. It's the L'Enfant Secret. So this is a very kind of new wave-esque film starring Anne Wiazemski. It's also much about kind of the beautiful shots and close-ups and the mood rather than like some big plot that goes from point A to point B. But I really love Philip Garrel's visual style. Yeah, it's just such a beautiful film. Great shot after great shot after great shot. So yeah, I recommend that to fans of French art films. Then we have a Roberto Rossellini film, Socrates, all about philosopher Socrates and his last days in Athens. Like we see the trial when he's, guess, accused of like corrupting the youth and stuff like that. Yeah. And many of the scenes in this film is just Socrates with his students having interesting discussions. So yeah, stylistically, it's very bare bones. There's not that many kind of big scenes in the film. It's mostly just the dialogue, the great dialogue, those great conversations. But I really enjoy Rossellini's kind of films about philosophers like this one and the Blaise Pascal one. Yeah. Then we have Manikaus, Uski Roti. This is my favorite Manikalu film. Of course, we already mentioned Duvidha. So this is even more Bressonian than Duvidha. Another one that has a very simple story. It's about this truck driver and his wife, Palo. And they have like a complicated relationship, very toxic relationship. So it's all about that relationship in that kind of very Bressonian minimalist visual style, quite a very dark style, and it's a very dark and bleak film, not very happy film, but very interesting stuff. I watched that on YouTube, but it was on pretty bad quality, unfortunately. Then another Kim Kyung film, A Woman After a Killer Butterfly, another very colorful and weird film, melodrama, a thriller. Yeah, quite dark and disgusting at moments, but very interesting stylistically. Definitely not for everybody. Then a Finnish film, Year of the Hare or Jäniksen vuosi, about a man who gets bored of the city life and wants to go live in the nature in Lapland, and he meets this hare and takes the hare with him. And so this is all about the kind of modernity versus tradition, nature versus kind of city life, and what's the best for a human being, what's the best for your spiritual growth, and what's less alienating and things like that. So very interesting and very relevant film still, and very fun and interesting watch. So yeah. But of course there are many other unknown and underrated films from the 1970s, but this was a list of 25 films, so I would highly recommend you to watch these films if you can get hold of them. Again, some of them are on the Criterion channel. Yeah. and watch Neil's movie channel's video about kind of a similar video where he also highlighted some films from the 1970s that hadn't been mentioned in other videos. And also Solitary Ronin Films made a interesting list where he also highlighted films that where you have to read subtitles. So yeah. But anyway, thanks for watching. Don't drink Coke at all. Sayonara and arigato gozaimashita.